Six world powers have finally reached an agreement with Iran over its nuclear program after more than 3 weeks of non-stop talks.
There are also 7 kings. 5 have fallen, 1 is, and the other has not yet come. And when he comes, he must continue a short time.
Well, here are the key points then of the deal that we're going to go through. So Iran agreed not to enrich uranium above 3.7% in the next 15 years. The UN inspectors will be able to request visits to military sites. On top of that, Iran will allow monitoring of its nuclear facilities for the next 25 years, and the spent fuel will be shipped abroad. So quite a few concessions from the Iranian side there. And here's what they're going to be getting in exchange then. So let's have a look. So the draft says that the EU will lift economic sanctions as soon as the UN's atomic agency confirms that Iran is complying. A UN ban on arms sales will stay in place for another 5 years. The restriction on selling ballistic missile technologies to Tehran will remain in place for 8 years. It's also been agreed that restrictions will be put back in place within 65 days if Tehran is deemed to be in violation of the agreement.
On May 14, 1948, Israel declared itself an independent state. Another miracle occurred. The armies of 7 Arab nations marched on the newborn state, boasting that they would push the Jews into the sea. Outnumbered 100 to 1, Israel not only repelled the invaders, but acquired more of Palestine than was granted in the United Nations partition plan. During this war, Jordan had seized the biblical Jerusalem. Therefore, Israel declared the new city of Jerusalem as its capital. But deep in their hearts, they knew that the real Jerusalem was occupied by Jordan. Nevertheless, it was apparent that God was dealing once again with Israel as a nation. Many predictions of the Hebrew prophets relating to Israel's regathering since 1878 are being fulfilled.
The beast that was and is not is himself also the 8th, and is of the 7, and is going to perdition.
Many applaud the 1993 peace accord between the PLO and Israel as a positive gesture toward peace, but have deep apprehensions that it may be a strategy by the Arabs to gain a foothold in Israel from which to launch a future assault. Arab military sophistication is on the increase. Seemingly, time is on their side.
Within less than 1 year after the U.S. supplied those Syrian so-called freedom fighters with weapons, those weapons ended up in the hands of ISIS fighters. In fact, American media also began to report that the Free Syrian Army had fighters defecting from their ranks and joining with ISIS. ISIS was able to become so powerful so quickly was because of their ability to grab up U.S. military gear. We'll talk about that in a minute, but also because of the stunning amount of wealth that they've been accumulating. Most of that coming from seizing oil fields in Iraq and in Syria.
At the time of the end, the king of the south shall attack him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, horsemen, and with many ships. And he shall enter the countries, overwhelm them, and pass through. He shall also enter the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape from his hand, Edom, Moab, and the prominent people of Ammon. He shall have power over the treasures of gold and silver, and over all the precious things of Egypt. Also the Libyans and Ethiopians shall follow at his heels.
More than 3,000 years of history obliterated in seconds. This video was released by ISIS. CNN cannot independently verify its authenticity, but it purports to show the radicals destroying Nimrud, one of the most important archaeological sites in Iraq.
On the Arab front, there is a deep concern that Iran won't abide by the terms, that Iran will be emboldened, that Iran will feel empowered, it will be enriched, and that it will use its new gained power and wealth to further assert its dominant position in countries like Iraq and Syria and Yemen. and Gulf states, in particular Saudi Arabia, are very threatened by that.
Iran's neighbors have been following the talks in Vienna very closely, especially Israel and Saudi Arabia. Israel is suspicious of Iran's intentions and has been throughout. It's worried the country could be capable of developing a nuclear bomb even after this deal. Saudi Arabia wants sanctions to remain in place. It says a stronger Iranian economy will mean more Iranian interference in countries including Lebanon, Iraq and Yemen. But the lifting of sanctions could be a relief for other Gulf states.